In this video, we're going to be creating a program to calculate the total cost to pave a driveway. We're going to complete the initial requirements first, then we'll go through and make the revisions necessary to complete the second version of the activity. To start, we're going to need to set up our project and create the RectPavingCompany class. Once we have our class created, we're going to want to start by first creating our main method. The first requirement of our program is that it needs to be able to prompt the user for the width of the driveway in feet. To do this, we're going to need to use the scanner class. Before we can use the scanner class, we must first import it at the top. Once imported, we're going to need to create an object of the class and have it receive the input. Don't worry if that didn't make sense. The important thing to note here is the syntax. Once we've created the scan object, we can use it to receive input from the user. We'll first prompt the user for the width of the driveway in feet. We'll then create an integer named width that will be equal to the numerical value of the input from the user. Integer.parseInt is important because the response from the user will be interpreted as a string variable. We're going to need to parse that and convert it to an integer before we can store it in the width variable because we've defined width to be an integer. The next requirement is that we're going to need to prompt the user for the length of the driveway. We'll use the same process, but because we've already imported the scanner class and created the scan object, we won't need to repeat that process. We'll just have to prompt the user for the information and store that in the same manner, but to a new variable, this time named length. The program must also be able to calculate and display the area of the driveway. The formula for calculating the area would be length times width, and we can store that in a new integer, area. We also need the perimeter, which would be 2 times length plus 2 times width, and we can store that value to the perimeter integer. In order to display these, we'll use system.out.format and pass in the string including %d for where the integer variables should be present. Following the string, we'll add a comma in the variable area and perimeter. One thing to keep in mind is that system.out.format does not create a new line at the end, so we'll need to do that manually with %n. Alright, let's check it out. Perfect. The final task in our initial program is going to be to calculate the total cost of the driveway. We know that cement for the driveway will cost $12.50 per square foot, and the framing and footers for the driveway will cost $8.25 per linear foot. Because these costs have decimals, we're going to need to create them as float variables. Float variables will have the letter F following the value. When printing out the results, instead of %d, we're going to use %f to denote that the variable being passed in will be a float. When passing in the variables, we can actually run our calculations. Alright, let's take a look and see how that looks. Perfect! Now moving on to the second version. We're going to need to modify the program so that it prompts the user for the cost of the cement. The cement is still going to be a float, and we'll use the same process as before. We'll first prompt the user, then we'll use the scanner, but this time we're going to be parsing a float. Awesome, let's run it and see what happens. And that's it! We've successfully completed the paving company activity.